When the storm outside rages, peace is not found by running away, it's found by being still within. Life is not always gentle. There are days when everything seems to fall apart. The plans, the people, the peace. Maybe you've been through that. Sleepless nights, anxious mornings, waiting for clarity that never came. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers, "Stay calm, this too shall pass." But how? How do you stay relaxed when life feels impossible? How do you breathe when the weight of the world is pressing on your chest? My friends, today, let's explore 7 powerful lessons, 7 quiet truths that can help us remain calm, even in our hardest seasons. Because peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of purpose, faith, and trust, even when everything hurts. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's closing in. The noise, the pressure, the fear, they all seem to collide at once. It's like standing in the middle of a storm, trying to hold your ground while the wind pulls you in every direction. In those moments, most people try to fight the storm. They try to push harder, run faster, or think louder. But the truth is, sometimes peace doesn't come from doing more. It comes from pausing, from breathing, from remembering that before you break, you can always breathe. When we lose control, the first thing we forget is something so simple, our breath. The breath is our life's rhythm. When we are calm, it flows gently. When we are angry, it becomes shallow. When we are afraid, we hold it back. And so, the first act of self-care during chaos is not to fix the world outside, but to return to the rhythm within. Because every conscious breath reminds us, I am still alive, I am still capable, and I am not defined by this moment of pain. Once a young man came to a monk and said, "I've tried everything. I've prayed, I've worked, I've begged life to change, but my mind just won't stop racing." The monk smiled gently and said, "Before you try to change your life, try to sit and breathe for 10 minutes. The man laughed. "Breathe? That's too simple. I have real problems." But the monk only nodded and said, "Then your peace must begin with something simple." Reluctantly, the young man tried. He sat down, closed his eyes, and took one slow breath, then another, then another. With each breath, he began to notice. His shoulders softened, his heartbeat slowed, and his thoughts became quieter. He realized something powerful. Peace was not far away. It was within him all along, hidden beneath the noise of his panic. We underestimate how powerful stillness can be. The world trains us to act, react, and move. But sometimes, wisdom is found in the pause between the chaos. Just as music is not made of notes alone, but the silence between them, life too finds meaning in its pauses. When you take a breath in the middle of stress, you're not running away from your problem, you're preparing yourself to face it with clarity. Because a calm mind can see solutions that an anxious mind never will. Think about it. When you are angry and speak, do your words heal or hurt? When you are anxious and decide, do your choices bring peace or regret? Most of the damage in relationships, in careers, and even in our own hearts comes from reacting too soon, without breathing, without centering ourselves. A single deep breath can save a moment. A few deep breaths can save a relationship. A daily habit of mindful breathing can save a life from breaking under its own weight. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. When you get bad news, before reacting, pause. When someone hurts you, before replying, pause. When you're about to make a decision out of fear, pause. That small space of silence between reaction and response is where peace lives. It's where wisdom whispers softly, guiding you toward what truly matters. Breathing consciously is also a form of prayer. Every inhale says, "Thank you for life." Every exhale says, "I trust you with what's next." It's a conversation between your soul and the divine, wordless but deeply sacred. Sometimes the best way to pray is not through words but through presence. Just being still, breathing deeply, and remembering that the one who gave you breath is still with you in the storm. We can't always control the storms outside, but we can always calm the storms within. That's what breathing teaches us, that peace isn't something to chase, it's something to uncover. The next time you find yourself at the edge of breaking, remind yourself, this breath is proof that I'm still capable. This breath is proof that I still have a choice. Breathe until your mind quiets enough to hear your heart again. Breathe until your fear softens into faith. Breathe until you remember that even in chaos you are not powerless. Because peace begins not when the storm stops, but when you learn to be still in the middle of it. There comes a time in every person's when no matter how hard you try, things just don't go your way. You plan, you prepare, you give your best, yet something slips out of your control. You face rejection, loss, misunderstanding, or unexpected change. And in those moments, the mind starts to scream, fight harder, don't let this happen. But sometimes fighting the wave only makes you sink deeper. The more you resist life's flow, the more exhausted your soul becomes. True peace begins not when you conquer the storm, but when you learn how to float through it with faith. Imagine being caught in the ocean, struggling against a strong current. Panic sets in. You fight the water, you kick and flail, trying to reach the shore. But the more you resist, the faster your strength fades. Then someone on the shore yells, "Stop fighting, lie back and float." At first, it sounds ridiculous. How can you survive by letting go? But when you finally surrender, your body begins to rise. The water that once felt like your enemy becomes your support. You realize that the ocean never wanted to drown you. It only needed you to trust its rhythm. Life works the same way. When things fall apart, our instinct is to control, to fix, to demand answers. But there are seasons when God's greatest lesson for us is surrender. Not giving up, but letting go. There's a difference. Giving up is born of despair. Letting go is born of wisdom. It's the courage to say, I may not understand this right now, but I trust that something good is being shaped out of this. That's faith in its purest form. The peace of trusting the process even when you don't see the purpose. A young woman once came to her spiritual teacher, tears streaming down her face. She said, "Everything I loved is slipping away. I prayed, I worked, I tried, but nothing is in my control anymore. What should I do?" The teacher smiled and said, "You remind me of someone drowning in a river, clinging to a rock in fear of being swept away. You think the rock is Savin. But it's actually keeping you from reaching the shore." Sometimes life shakes us not to break us, but to make us let go. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what's not meant for you. It means trusting that what leaves your life was never meant to stay, and what's meant for you will never miss you. The wave that knocks you down is the same wave that can carry you to shore if you stop resisting and start flowing. There is a deep wisdom in nature. The river never fights its flow. It doesn't question the rocks or the bends along the way. It simply moves gently, steadily, trusting that its path will lead to the ocean. In life too, not every detour is a mistake. Some of the things we call delays are divine redirections. Some of the things we call losses are silent blessings in disguise. When you learn to float, you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this tea aching me?" That one shift in mindset transforms pain into power. It turns bitterness into wisdom. It helps you see that the wave was never your enemy. It was your teacher. Every tough situation you faced has shaped you in ways comfort never could. It made you stronger, humbler, more compassionate, more faithful. The people who've learned to float through hardship carry a certain calmness in their eyes, not because their lives are easy, but because they've learned to trust that every wave, no matter how fierce, is part of a larger ocean of purpose. So when life throws you into uncertain waters, remember this: you are not meant to drown, you are meant to rise. Relax your spirit, stop overthinking the future, stop fighting what's already unfolding. Just as the ocean holds the floating body, the divine holds your heart. Trust that you are being carried to where you need to be, even if it's not where you wanted to go. The greatest peace comes when you finally whisper, "I let go." When you surrender control and allow faith to take over. And then, slowly, the current that terrified you begins to carry you gently forward. The chaos starts to make sense. The pain starts to heal. You begin to see that the wave didn't come to destroy you. It came to teach you how to trust deeper, love purer, and live lighter. So stop fighting the wave. Learn to float. Because when you float in faith, you discover that even the roughest waters can carry you closer to your destiny. There's something about worry that quietly steals life from us. It begins as a small thought, just a whisper in the mind. What if this doesn't work out? And before we realize it, that whisper grows into a storm. We replay the same fears again and again, as if worrying harder will somehow change the outcome. But here's the truth: worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its problems. It only empties today of its peace. Every time we sit and worry, our mind gets trapped in the prison of what ifs. What if I fail? What if I lose? What if they don't like me? What if everything falls apart? But instead of asking, what if we asked, what can I give? Because service, even a small act of kindness, has the power to melt the heaviness of worry into something beautiful. Purpose. When your mind is restless, the best therapy is not more thinking, it's more giving. The heart finds healing when it learns to serve. When you turn your focus from what's missing in my life to what difference can I make in someone else's life, something shifts inside. Suddenly, the world feels lighter, your problems seem smaller, and your heart feels alive again. I remember once meeting a man who had lost everything in a financial collapse. His business failed, his savings were gone, and his relationships were falling apart. He came to me, his eyes filled with despair, and said, "Swamiji, I can't stop worrying. Every morning I wake up with this heavy feeling that my life is over." I gently asked him, "How? Many hours a day do you spend thinking about your situation?" He sighed, "All of them." I said, "Then for just 1 hour each day, stop thinking about yourself and think about how you can help someone else. Visit an old age home, feed the poor, teach someone a skill, just 1 hour of service a day." He was skeptical but desperate, so he agreed. Weeks later, he came back and I could see something had changed. His face looked lighter. His words had a calmness that wasn't there before. He said, "I still have problems, but I don't feel crushed by them anymore. When I'm serving others, my heart feels full. It's strange. When I help someone smile, it feels like my own pain becomes smaller." And that's the paradox of life. The more you focus on easing someone else's pain, the more your own pain begins to fade. Worry keeps you trapped in self-centered thinking. Service breaks that wall. Service doesn't remove your problems, but it gives them meaning. It reminds you that you're not here just to survive. You're here to serve. Think of a candle. When it lights another candle, its own flame doesn't shrink, it doubles the light. In the same way, when you share your time, your care, your smile, your light grows. You feel more connected, more human, more alive. You don't have to do something big. You don't have to wait for the perfect time. Just begin with something small. A kind word, a patient ear, a helping hand. Even smiling at a stranger is a form of service because it spreads peace. When your energy goes towards serving, your mind shifts from "why is this happening to me?" to "how can I bring light into this?" That single shift from self-focus to selflessness is the doorway to calm. Because peace doesn't live in the mind that's always asking, "What do I get?" It lives in the heart that asks, "What can I give?" When you live this way, life starts to respond differently. People are drawn to you. Opportunities open up. And even when challenges remain, your HEA feels stronger. Because serving others fills you with a sense of purpose that worry can never give. Sometimes the best way to stop drowning in your own thoughts is to reach out and lift someone else. When you do, you realize that your struggle was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to deepen your compassion. You begin to see that maybe, just maybe, your pain was preparing you to understand someone else's pain more deeply. When you help another person smile, you are not only bringing light into their life, you are reminding your soul of what truly matters. So when you catch yourself worrying, ask instead, Whose burden can I lighten today? And you'll find that the more you give, the more you receive in return, not in money, not in success, but in something far more precious: peace. Because the heart that serves doesn't sink, it rises, it shines. It rests in the quiet joy of knowing, I may not be able to fix everything, but I can still make a difference. And that, my friends, is where true relaxation begins. Not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of service. There is a quiet magic in gratitude, a power so gentle yet so strong that it can turn storms into stillness. But the truth is, gratitude rarely comes easily when life gets hard. When things fall apart, when people disappoint us, when dreams crumble, the last thing the mind wants to say is thank you. Instead, we grumble, we question, we resist. And yet, those who have truly tasted peace know this secret: gratitude is not a reaction, it's a decision. It's a sacred choice to focus on what's right, even when everything feels wrong. Tension begins when we focus on what's missing. Tranquility begins when we focus on what's present. The more we chase what we don't have, the more restless we become. But the moment we pause and say, wait, I still have this breath, I still have this chance, I still have love somewhere around me, a small shift happens inside. The heart softens, the mind slows down, the storm begins to quiet. Once I met a young woman who had gone through a painful breakup. She was bright, kind, and deeply emotional, but her spirit had dimmed. She said, Swamiji, I've lost everything that made me happy. I smiled and said, everything, take a breath. She looked at me confused. What do you mean? I said gently. That breath you just took, did it cost you anything? She smiled faintly. No. Did it bring you life? Yes, she said softly. Then you haven't lost everything. Tears welled up in her eyes because in that moment she realized that even in her pain she still had something to be grateful for. Her breath, her heartbeat, her hope. Gratitude doesn't deny pain, it transforms it. It doesn't erase loss, it reveals what's left. When life gets tough, gratitude doesn't come naturally. You have to cultivate it. It's like tending a garden in a storm. The weeds of complaint grow fast, but the flowers of thankfulness require care. You have to look intentionally for blessings. Not because they're rare, but because the noise of worry often hides them. Sometimes the smallest things can bring us back to peace. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, a kind word from a stranger, a meal on your table, a roof over your head, a friend who listens, or even the fact you for the warmth. When the storm comes, I say thank you for the lesson. The student asked, so you're grateful even when things go wrong? The monk smiled and said, my child, things don't go wrong, they go the way they're meant to go. Gratitude helps me see that. That's the beauty of gratitude. It doesn't make life perfect, it makes life peaceful. It helps you trust that even in the middle of pain, there's still purpose. Even in the middle of loss, there's still love. Even in the middle of chaos, there's still grace. When your heart learns to say thank you, not just for what feels good, but also for what teaches you, your entire experience of life changes. You begin to see that every disappointment brought you closer to humility. Every delay protected you from something unseen. Every struggle built strength you didn't know you had. So the next time you feel tension rising, stop for a moment. Look around, look within, and whisper, thank you. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for another sunrise. Thank you for the strength to carry on. Because when you focus on gratitude, you realize you're not empty. You're blessed in countless invisible ways. Gratitude doesn't just change your mood, it changes your frequency. It tunes your heart to peace. It takes your focus off what's beyond your control and brings you back to the simple miracle of being alive. You see, tranquility isn't found in perfect circumstances. It's found in a grateful heart. Gratitude turns your gaze from what's lost to what's left, from worry to wonder, from tension to trust. And that trust, that quiet faith, is where real relaxation begins. So today, breathe deeply and say thank you. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are learning, growing, and still being guided. The more grateful you are, the more peaceful you become. Because gratitude doesn't change your world, it changes the way you see your world, and that changes everything. We live in a world that glorify. Everything around us screams, faster, hurry up, don't waste time. We rush through our mornings, our meals, our relationships, and even our prayers. We chase success like it's a finish line that keeps moving further away. And in this constant race, we forget something simple yet profound. Some of the most beautiful things in life take time. Flowers don't bloom overnight. Rivers don't carve valleys in a day. Even miracles unfold one breath at a time. But when life slows down, when things get delayed, when progress seems invisible, our minds start to panic. We ask, why is nothing happening? Re was still no sign of life. People mocked him, you're wasting your time, there's nothing growing there. But he continued to nurture the soil, trusting the process he couldn't see. Then in the 5th year, something incredible happened. The bamboo sprouted. Within 6 weeks, it grew over 60 feet tall. What had been happening all those years? The roots were growing deep, deeper than he could see, stronger than he could imagine. The delay wasn't death, it was preparation. Life works the same way. When things seem still, don't assume nothing's happening. God is often working in silence, building roots, forming strength, preparing your blessings. You may not see growth on the surface, but deep within your soul is being shaped. Sometimes when God slows us down, it's not to punish us, but to protect us. Because not everything that comes fast lasts. Quick success can inflate the ego, slow growth builds character. Quick love can fade, slow love matures. Quick answers may please the mind, but slow answers purify the heart. The pause in your life might just be God's way of saying, I'm preparing something greater than what you asked for. A man once told me, Swamiji, I've prayed for something for years, but it's still not happening. Maybe God forgot me. I smiled and said, when a teacher is silent during a test, it's not because he's left the classroom, it's because he's watching how well the student applies what he's already learned. In your silent seasons, God is watching, not to judge, but to strengthen you. He's teaching patience, humility, and faith, qualities that no easy season could ever teach. Every delay in your life carries a divine purpose, to align your heart with what truly matters. Think of the caterpillar. When it's trapped in its cocoon, it must wait, still silent in darkness. But while it waits, it's not dying, it's transforming. The same is true for you. When life feels still and uncomfortable, maybe you're in your cocoon season, the phase between what you were and what you're becoming. And when the time is right, you will fly. So if the door hasn't opened yet, don't break it down. Trust that it's locked for a reason. If your plans haven't taken off yet, don't despair. Maybe the runway is being cleared for a smoother takeoff. And if you feel like you've been standing still while everyone else moves ahead, remind yourself, flowers don't compare when they bloom. They simply trust the season. The divine knows when you're ready, when your heart is aligned, when your lessons are learned, when your roots are deep enough, then things begin to move. And when they do, they'll move so swiftly, you'll understand why it took so long. Patience is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's faith in motion. It's the quiet confidence that while you wait, something sacred is unfolding. So slow down. Stop measuring your life by deadlines and checklists. Take a walk, breathe, be present. The world won't fall apart if you rest. God is TI. Lurking, even in the silence, even in the stillness, even in the places where you feel forgotten. Remember, faith is not believing that everything will happen instantly. Faith is believing that everything will happen exactly when it's meant to. And when it does, you'll look back and realize every delay had meaning, every pause had purpose, and every waiting moment was a whisper of love from the one who knew your path better than you ever could. So, slow down. You are not behind. You are right where you need to be. Trust the timing, trust the process, trust the unseen hand that's still working quietly, patiently, lovingly for your highest good. In life, one of the hardest lessons to learn is how to love deeply, without losing yourself completely. How to care sincerely, without carrying everything on your shoulders. How to stay connected, without being consumed. We often confuse attachment with love, but they are not the same. Love is freeing, attachment is binding. Love gives strength, attachment drains it. And that's why one of the most peaceful skills we can ever learn is the art of detachment, not to disconnect from people, but to stay centered while staying connected. You see, when we love with attachment, we make someone or something the source of our happiness. We say, I can't live without you, or I'll be happy when this happens, and without realizing it, we hand over the keys of our peace to something fragile and temporary. The moment that thing changes or leaves, our peace shatters. But when we love with detachment, we say, I'm grateful for you, I care for you deeply, but my happiness is not dependent on you. That is freedom, that is maturity, that is love with wisdom. There was once a gardener who loved his flowers dearly. Every day he watered them, trimmed them, and spoke to them with tenderness. But he was so attached that he couldn't bear to see even a single petal fall. When a flower began to wither, as all flowers must, he became miserable. He tried to hold the petals in place, tying them back, shielding them from the wind, and in doing so, he crushed the very beauty he wanted to protect. One day an old monk passed by and said, My dear friend, love your flowers, but let them bloom and fade in their own time.